Welcome to the snapshot of Why You Eat What You Eat, The Science Behind Our Relationship with Food by Herz. Here we'll explore the key insights from Why You Eat What You Eat. Introduction. Food is so intrinsic to the human experience that the human body would be evolutionarily different without it. It's no wonder then that you likely have very strong attachments to some foods and very strong aversions to others. With the abundance and convenience of food available to the average American today, it's important to keep in mind three major aspects of the eating experience. 1. The senses. You eat with all 5 of your senses, and all of your senses evolve to help you eat well. 2. Psychology. Your brain can be tricked into tasting foods differently depending on your expectations. 3. Emotion. Comfort food is comforting because it stands in for the people you love, but it only takes one bad experience to hate a food. The Fab Four. Taste is as old as life itself. The first life forms had something like a sense of taste. It was a way to recognize what was safe to eat or not. Because taste is such an early sense, humans have taste receptors in the pancreas, liver, testicles, lungs, nose, and gut. But only the receptors in the 5,000 to 10,000 taste buds on the tongue register tastes. There are 4 criteria for what constitutes a taste. It must come from a set of chemicals that are activated when dissolved in saliva. The taste has to be distinctive and unique. The perception of the taste has to be associated with a biochemical reaction, and the taste has to have a physiological preferential reaction. For instance, the body likes sweet and dislikes bitter. Only 4 tastes meet these criteria: sweet, salty, bitter, and sour. Sweet taste triggers the same pathways in the brain as drugs do, prompting the release of dopamine. The human brain is fueled by glucose. 20 to 25% of the calories you consume go toward powering your brain with it. There's a genetic basis for liking sweet food, and people taste sweetness differently. Sweet-sensitive children taste it more intensely than kids who are less sensitive, and for that reason, they tend to eat less sweet food. But, contrary to the old wives' tale, eating a lot of sweets as a child doesn't fate you to craving them forever. The chemical basis for sour has to do with the pH scale of acids and bases. Sour is activated by a pH in foods that's lower than 7, which is neutral, meaning that it comes from acids. Your ability to detect sour taste is probably an evolutionary advantage, as eating very sour foods is hazardous to the human body. Although the innate physiological response to sour is to dislike it, you can habituate yourself to sour tastes based on your food choices and regional cuisine. Preference for salt is evolutionary as well. Salt is present in many proteins, and sodium serves important biological functions like regulating water flow in the body. You can increase or decrease your preference for salt by changing your diet. Bitter is on the opposite end of sour. It correlates to pH ratings over 7. In nature, poisons generally have a bitter taste. There are 25 different kinds of bitter receptors, more than for any other taste, which underlines how important bitter is for the human body to avoid. Interestingly, all human feelings of disgust, whether or not they have to do with taste, evolved from a foundational disgust reaction to bitter taste. When your roommate or family member leaves your bathroom smelling awful, in other words, your physiological reaction to it comes from your distaste for poison. Tasty. Beyond the 4 basic tastes, there are at least 20 other sensations that are debatably tastes. 4 in particular are important: umami, fat, calcium, and spiciness. Umami is a product of glutamate. It's described as a mouth-watering, satisfying, salty flavor. Tomatoes, for example, contain an abundance of glutamate, meaning that your love of Bloody Marys has a physiological basis. Umami meets the physiological criteria for tastes, but since a hallmark of umami is saltiness, it's debatable whether it's unique. Umami is actually sensed through digestion, not the tongue, and it's a satisfying flavor by association. Since many protein-heavy foods contain a lot of glutamate, your brain associates umami with feeling satisfied, whether or not the umami flavor is coming from protein. Fat also has a distinct chemical profile and physiological sensors, but the other aspects of qualifying it as a taste are debatable. For instance, since fat is so nutritive, you'd think that people would have an innate positive reaction to it. But the taste of fat on its own isn't liked much. It's only when sweet or salt is added to it that most people like the taste of fat. Like sweet foods, fatty foods trigger dopamine release in the brain. Calcium tastes a little like clay or chalk, and it plays extremely important roles in the body. Too much or too little calcium can jeopardize one or another bodily systems. Although the flavor of calcium is arguably unique, it shares taste receptors with umami and sweet, meaning that it's not processed uniquely as a taste. It's also bitter. Dark leafy greens like kale get their bitter flavor from calcium, which means that you're absolutely right for not liking how it tastes, but also that you probably should be eating more of it. Spiciness isn't actually a taste at all. Your perception of spiciness comes from the trigeminal system, which detects pain and irritation. Humans are the only animals that like spicy food, probably because of what's known as benign masochism, the enjoyment of thrilling but ultimately unthreatening experiences. The chemical capsaicin is what causes spiciness. You can habituate yourself to like and tolerate spicy foods. For instance, the host of the Hot Wings-based interview show Hot Ones, Sean Evans, is consistently asked by guests how he can tolerate eating extremely spicy food week after week. His taste buds haven't burned off. He's just had a lot of practice. Follow your nose. It's hard to overstate how important smell is to the human experience. When you're anosmic, when you can't smell, you can only taste tastes, not flavors. Stan, for example, lost his sense of smell after a vengeful former employee tried to murder him by running him over with a pickup truck. Over the course of 2 years, he gained 100 pounds in an unconscious attempt to recapture the pleasure of eating and the social pleasure of eating food his wife cooked, something he'd never thought to appreciate in the past, vanished, ultimately leading to depression and a divorce. Flavor comes from your sense of smell. It's an illusion that flavor comes from the mouth. Rather, it comes from odor molecules moving from the back of the throat into the nasal cavity. The entire art and science of cooking arose from human enjoyment of flavor. Cooking both releases nutrients and causes Maillard reactions, which are the browning reactions that occur when food is exposed to high heat. Smell is hardwired into emotion in a way that other senses aren't. The smell cortex of the brain is physiologically near the emotional centers of the brain. When you repeatedly encounter aromas through either tasting or smelling, you create emotional associations with it. Many people love the scent of vanilla because so many sweet foods contain it, for example. Fetuses can detect odor compounds in amniotic fluid, meaning that these associations start forming even before birth. Several factors contribute to an increased or decreased sense of smell. Alcohol and cigarettes blunt your sense of smell, as do aging and depression. Marijuana, however, increases your sense of smell, which is why smokers get the munchies. Food aromas prime the body to eat, so increased sensitivity to those aromas increases the likelihood of snacking. Food fight. If you're averse to eating, it's usually for one of two reasons. Either you hate food, or you hate the results of eating. The former condition is called avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, or ARFID. Gabe, for example, couldn't tolerate runny, wet, or mushy food. The foods he ate had to be prepared in very particular ways. Corn, for example, could only be eaten off the cob. He wouldn't eat foods that were combined, or even foods that touched one another, to the extent that he would serve himself food on separate plates. As a teenager, he only ate white or white-ish foods. This caused not only social problems, but conflict at home as his parents tried to force him to eat a new food every week. Humans are omnivorous, which is relatively rare in the animal kingdom and means that you have an enormous range of choices for what to eat. Your brain's way of dealing with that range of choices is to create food phobias or aversions, particularly to new kinds of food. Children tend to be more neophobic than adults, but extreme fear of new foods can continue well into adulthood. However, you can create taste aversions even if you're not a picky eater. Taste aversions form quickly and can be cued by just one bad experience. You could associate a food with a bad smell, suddenly think that it looks like vomit, or it could actually be in your vomit after a night of heavy drinking, for instance, and you might never eat it again. Taste aversions are difficult to undo. Most people don't want to experience disgust willingly. Eye candy. Seeing food makes you want to eat, and the sight of food, in turn, makes food taste better. This has largely to do with expectations. The appearance of food gives you cues as to how it's going to taste, as do the words associated with the food, on a menu or on packaging, for instance. As well, color vision evolved in humans to give them the ability to distinguish ripeness and safety, and to pick out food from foliage. For this reason, color is deeply associated with flavor. Red makes food taste sweeter, where green makes food seem more sour, for instance. More than anything, people don't like for their food not to meet their expectations. Despite Sam I Am's insistence, most people would find green eggs and ham to be very psychologically disturbing, and the color would probably make the food taste worse because it violates expectations. I would not, could not, indeed. Other visual cues are also incorporated into the eating experience. While most people don't like to eat in absolute darkness, dim light is relaxing and causes diners to eat more. Big portions prompt you to eat more as well, because they're a cue to eat faster and take bigger bites. People eat less when their food is in small pieces, and your brain can trick you into thinking that a serving is bigger than it really is if you serve it on a small plate with a narrow rim. Even shape matters. Round shapes, whether it's the shape of the food or the shape of the plate it's served on, make food taste sweeter. Sharp shapes taste more bitter. The sound and the feeling. When a food is crispy, you can't actually feel it. Teeth can't feel, per se. Instead, you hear crispiness, and the brain assigns it to the food you're feeling in your mouth. This is called sensation transference, and it's only one way that sound interacts with food. Another is music. Background music has powerful effects on diners. For instance, a British supermarket ran an experiment in which they played cultural music in the store. When French accordion music was playing, customers bought more French wine. When German Bierkeller music was playing, customers bought more German wine. Fast music prompts diners to eat faster. Classical music prompts diners to spend more on their meals. The loudness of background music can make it difficult to tell how much alcohol you've been drinking, which is no doubt why your friends seem to get more drunk at the club than in the dorm during college. Despite the fact that you can't feel crunch per se, the texture of food matters. You'll eat soft food faster and eat more of it than when the same food is hard. People tend to be averse to particles in their food, which is probably an evolutionary response to a threat of choking. Even the texture and weight of servingware changes your perception of the quality of the food you eat. Smooth, heavy silverware and dishes make you think that the food you're eating is of higher quality. This, again, is an example of sensation transference. Mind over munchies. Snacking and cravings are a psychological phenomenon that marketers influence, and that you can exert influence over as well. As mentioned, seeing images of food primes you to eat. Seeing a lot of food in one place does too, and unorganized and large assortments of food make you want to eat more. Keeping a well-organized fridge, then, will help curb your appetite late at night. Easy access to food and the convenience of prepared food lead to increased eating. The other edge of that sword is that when food is prepared for you and readily available, you spend less time and burn fewer calories in the process of finding and preparing it. Labels claiming that a food is low-fat, low-sugar, or healthy make you feel more licensed to eat greater quantities of food, and they decrease your motivation to exercise or do other good things for your health. This is called the health halo. Healthy food is seen as erasing some of your other dietary and exercise chores. However, foods marketed as low-fat and low-sugar are also perceived to taste worse than when they're not labeled as healthy. On the flip side, believing that you've eaten a lot of calories speeds up your metabolism and makes you feel less hungry, regardless of your actual caloric intake. Are you full yet? Satiety is the feeling of fullness and satisfaction after eating. A few foods have been found to be much more satiating than others: potatoes, oatmeal, fish, yogurt, and nuts. While bigger portions of food have been found to be more satiating than smaller portions, the good news is that the more satiated you are after a meal, the less you'll eat later. Food rituals as well make you feel like food is more flavorful and valuable. The catch is that you have to do the ritual yourself, not just watch someone else do it. This is the value of saying grace before eating, for instance, regardless of belief system. Food rituals make you feel more involved with your food, and they enhance the experience of eating. Constantly eating the same food, however, decreases its satiety. It's possible to burn out on even your favorite foods, in other words. This is called sensory-specific satiety. It encourages you to switch from a food that you've eaten what your mind deems enough of a food that's new. Sensory-specific satiety is a biological advantage. By prompting you to stop eating one food and move on to something new, your brain is prompting you to consume diverse nutrients. Comfort food. Definitions of comfort food abound, but they tend to focus on two main aspects. They're foods from your childhood, and they're associated with home and family. In other words, food is comfort food when it's associated with being comforted. Comfort foods tend to contain a lot of sugar or carbohydrates. This might be because carbohydrates increase the production of serotonin in your brain, which in turn makes you feel sleepy and happy. The sleepy, happy feeling you get after Thanksgiving dinner isn't from tryptophan in the turkey, as it turns out. It's more likely a result of increased serotonin from the potatoes, casseroles, and pies. However, eating a lot of starches and sugars is related to inflammation and depression, so increasing your carbohydrate intake is not a good strategy for your overall mental health. Chocolate is uniquely comforting between its smooth texture, its warmth in the mouth, and sweetness. As well, chocolate contains theobromine, a mood enhancer, phenylalanine, which is involved in creating dopamine, and THC, the active ingredient in cannabis. Don't worry, you can't get high from chocolate alone. One catch of comfort foods is that people who have secure attachments in their families get more out of eating them than people who don't. Comfort food serves as a stand-in for loved ones who aren't nearby. It triggers nostalgia, which causes improved mood, optimism, and self-esteem. as well as creating a sense of connectedness and meaning. Food is deeply tied to positive emotion. Scent prompts memories, but food scents provoke nostalgia better than other scents. Food rituals almost always have to do with communal eating, and eating is fundamental to the human experience. Your favorite foods, for example, are a part of your personality. Food changes you. Food is love. Conclusion. The reason food is pleasurable is that it's part of who you are, both as an evolved human being and as an individual with your own preferences and personality. As you prepare food going forward, keep in mind these 3 aspects of the eating experience. 1, the senses. You eat with all 5 of your senses, and all of your senses evolve to help you eat well. 2, psychology. Your brain can be tricked into tasting foods differently depending on your expectations. 3, emotion. Comfort food is comforting because it stands in for the people you love, but it only takes one bad experience to hate a food. About Rachel Herz. Rachel Herz is a psychologist and neuroscientist. She specializes in the psychology of smell. She has also written That's Disgusting, Unraveling the Mysteries of Repulsion, and The Scent of Desire, Discovering Our Enigmatic Sense of Smell. Thank you for listening to the snapshot of Why You Eat What You Eat by Rachel Herz. If you liked what you heard, then make sure to explore the rest of our snapshot library to continue gaining key insights from nonfiction books in a matter of minutes.
Thank you for listening to our quick learning audiobook review series. If you liked what you heard, then check out our channel for more free audiobook reviews. We post new audiobooks every week. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell to be first to hear of our latest reviews.